Hi guys, so this video was supposed to be released in December, but I had to record the whole thing again because of some issues I had with the first time. So when I did it the second time, you can hear what I'm saying and all that's good. But I might have slowed it down a little too much, so throughout the video, you're going to hear the volume and speed of my voice go up and down very inconsistently. And all I can say to that is, I'm just very sorry. I've been working on this video for months now, and I was just getting sick of it and just wanted it to be done and uploaded. Yeah, the style of the review does not help either because it's the same as the first review, except it worked a lot better for that one than it does for this one, which is why it ended up being as long as it is. So the style is going to change completely for the next review, and hopefully for the better. You can tell that I have done this completely unscripted. I don't do this a lot. So, hopefully you enjoyed the video somehow. And, yeah. See you in the next one.
Our fathers died to create me, and now will too.
Ultimate Spider-Man. Hell yeah! One out of quite a few Spider-Man games that weren't movie tie-ins and instead were their own games with original stories written for them. For those of you that don't know, Ultimate Spider-Man was a comic book series that ran from the years 2000 to 2011, written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by Mark Bagley. This series took Peter Parker back down to high school and early into his career as Spider-Man for newer fans to read and enjoy. Back in the 90s, Marvel kinda went bankrupt, so this was sort of a redo for them, and it proved very successful. So for the older fans, they had an adult Spider-Man in the main Marvel Comics line, and for the newer and younger fans, they had a teenage Spider-Man in an alternate continuity. So, what's the next best thing to do to get more readers and fans? You make a game based on it, of course. And so the Ultimate Spider-Man game was released in 2005, only 1 year after the second movie game. And for the most part, it received average to positive reviews. But how did it get those well-received reviews in the first place? I guess we'll find out by the end of this review. The game starts off with a recap of one of the most important story arcs in the entire series, the Venom arc, which revealed the backstory behind Peter and Eddie Brock's parents and the Venom suit, which was supposed to be a cure for all terminal diseases with the addition of superhuman strength and other random abilities. This all culminated in a battle between the two old friends at Peter's high school, which the game recreates for this first boss fight with Venom. Nice! I guess now is as good a time as any to explain how the combat works. X is for punching, Y is for kicking, and A is for jumping out of the way when an enemy attacks. Yes, you heard that right. You have to jump out of the way to avoid getting hit instead of dodging, because there's no dodge button. Why? That was one of the things that Spider-Man 2 improved over the first game, and right after using it pretty well, they just get rid of it for this game? I just don't... Oh, and the L button is for webbing up enemies for a short period of time. By the end of the fight, Venom is presumed dead, and we cut to 3 months later for a good old tutorial. You can press the A button again while in midair to do a double jump because physics, and you can crawl on walls with the B button. For web swinging, you hold the R button when you're around tall enough buildings and press the X button to give yourself a boost. And to get higher in the air, you hold the Y button to climb up your web. If you press the L and R buttons at the same time, you can perform a web zip, which can be pretty handy when you're around smaller buildings or houses. The big test for your web swinging skills are the races with Johnny Storm. Aside from the first one, which is just an introduction to the races, the rest of them are quite challenging. So if you don't like the web swinging in this game, it's probably best that you don't try these out. It definitely helps that these races are completely optional. The last thing to mention about the tutorial with Spidey is the city goals, which give you a set of objectives that you have to complete in order to unlock more story missions. It's mostly the same as last time, except here you unlock a story mission once you've completed all of your objectives. But in Spider-Man 2, you had a mix of side objectives and story missions, which I think was the better option, but this still works well. Back to the story, we cut to Eddie Brock monologuing about his new life with the suit, and now you're Venom, and wait, I'm sorry, what? Yes, you heard that right. Venom is a playable character, not just simply in this game, but he's playable in the story of this game. After a story mission with Spider-Man is over, the next one will then swap to Venom and rinse repeat. This first mission with Venom is just a tutorial for how to play as him. X is for punching, Y is for attacking enemies with your tentacles, B is for wall crawling and grabbing enemies. Right after you grab an enemy, you can either throw him away by pressing B again, slam him to the ground by pressing X, or break his back by pressing X and then B. There are two types of jumping here. The A button is for a little hop, and the R button is for a huge Hulk-like jump that'll become very useful later on. A big part of Venom's gameplay is feeding. You see, whilst you're going around causing some chaos, you're slowly losing health. It's explained later on in the story. So you have to feed off of civilians by holding the L button. The longer you hold the button, the more health you receive. You can also feed off of enemies, but they barely give you any health, unless you just keep feeding off of a bunch of enemies that are all around you. There's also a web zip that Venom has. It's not great, just stick to the super jumps. You can throw vehicles by pressing the B button, like this bike here, which I'm absolutely certain doesn't belong to any superheroes that are around here. Never mind. And so the tutorial ends with a little boss battle with Wolverine, who you can defeat very easily by constantly whipping him with your tentacles. But if you attempt to fight him with your claws, you'll just constantly get stuck in these combo loops by him. Aside from that, this boss battle's pretty fun despite how short it is. Cut back to the Spider-Man side of the story with Peter just simply trying to study while he still has time left at school. But that'll have to wait because there's a rampaging rhinoceros on the loose, so you suit up and pursue the rhino. You save a couple of lives, beat up some thugs that were trying to get some TVs that were on sale. My god, Spider-Man thugs have lives too. And you eventually get an up close look at the rhino. As well as a couple of broken ribs, but you have super strength, so those are healed up in a few days. You chase him down to this place, trick him into getting his fist stuck in wet cement, and of course hit him with a wrecking ball, which leaves a big hole on his back. So you chase him a little bit more until you get to this car park. Is it me, or does this car park look like more of an arena for this boss battle than just an ordinary car park? Yeah, it's just me. You jump around the place to avoid his attacks until the hole on his back starts sparkling blue. That's when you can jump onto his back and repeatedly hit the hole for about 5 seconds. Throughout the fight, he starts charging at you more and more like how he does in other Spider-Man games. And he'll throw a bunch of cars at you that'll constantly reappear. So don't go hoping that he'll run out of cars to throw, because trust me, he never runs out. After that's over, Spidey finds out that the rhino suit is from some company called Trask Industries. He swings away and then his head starts to hurt, like a lot. He leaves and we see Eddie walking nearby, not suspicious at all. We cut back to Venom's story and see that he's being hunted by these mercenaries led by Silver Sable. This mission goes by very quickly. You'll most likely forget about it because of the rest of the story missions being so memorable. Back to Spider-Man's story, we see Peter in a museum, probably for a school trip. I don't know, we don't see anyone else here aside from these two. He starts having another painful headache and thinks it's his spider sense going crazy. He tells Mary Jane to go to safety, I honestly forgot that she was in this game. We then see Eddie outside of the museum. Peter's head continues hurting more and more as Eddie gets closer to him. They both climb to the top of the building. Peter's surprised that Eddie's still alive, and boss battle time. The best thing to do is jump around the place and do an air to ground kick by pressing the X or Y button while you're in the air. Most of the time, Venom will attack you with his tentacles. Oh no, he knows my tactic of using the tentacles all of the time, so you'll have to jump out of the way when that happens. You can do combos on Venom when he's vulnerable, but you can't be right next to him for too long because Spidey's head will start to hurt, which will make him disoriented and vulnerable to getting attacked. Remember that thing about Venom feeding off of people to survive? Well, he can do that to you in this fight if you're in front of him for too long, which will cause you to lose some health and Venom to gain more health. I like that Venom's gameplay is mostly the same in these boss battles with him. It's a nice touch. After the fight's over, Venom is knocked out and taken by Silver Sable and her mercenaries, leaving Spider-Man absolutely confused. Back to Venom, we see Eddie in some sort of containment cell, woken up by Bolivar Trask and Adrian Toomes. And it's really weird seeing Adrian not in a ridiculous bird costume. They tell him that the Venom suit is worth billions in government contracts, and that the suit will eventually consume Eddie so they'll get whatever they want regardless. So Eddie hesitantly agrees for this field test and is assigned to, I think, capture or kill Electro. The game isn't really specific about it, but I guess that doesn't matter because we get a chase out of it, and it's something to say the least. So there are two types of chasing sections in this game. There's doing a chase as Spider-Man and doing one as Venom. The chases as Spider-Man are fairly challenging, but not on the level of feeling like it's impossible to catch up with the villain you're after. The chases as Venom, however, feel like a chore to get through because of his playstyle. Spider-Man has web swinging and web zips, Venom has super jumps and a web zip that's basically useless. Like this chase with Electro, where you have to use your super jumps to stay close to him, but after he's flown away for a few seconds, he'll stop and create this big shield of electricity, and if you're hit, you'll go flying away from him and giving him an opportunity to escape. And there's a high chance you'll get hit by that shield if you're using your super jumps and not carefully timing where on the ground to land. There's also this bit where he flies to the top of the Empire State Building and you have to climb up all the way to the top. That's what you'd think you're supposed to do, right? Turns out you're supposed to wait when you're near the top because Electro creates another shield, and if you're hit, you'll of course get sent flying off of the building and he'll escape a few seconds later. As you can tell, I'm not very happy about this part of the mission. It's definitely one out of quite a few hard parts of the game, but at least those later missions are challenging the player's skills without going a little overboard like this chase. To be fair, Venom only has 2 chases and the second one does go more easy on you, but that still doesn't make up for this one. The chase eventually ends in Times Square. Electro knocks out Spider-Man because he was nearby the Daily Bugle, and now you've got to protect Spider-Man whilst also fighting Electro because you're the only one who must kill Spider-Man. This first part of the fight is not too difficult. Just whip him with your tentacles and make sure he's not too close to Spider-Man. After you've taken away most of his health, he'll fly to one of these electric billboards and, well, suck the electricity out of it. As soon as the cutscene ends, just super jump to all of the electric billboards and use your tentacles to destroy them in the air. If you don't do this and take away more of Electro's health, he'll constantly go to another billboard and regenerate his health. So destroy most of the billboards and continue on with the fight. Yes, I said most of the billboards because the game doesn't let you destroy this last one. Just don't attempt to destroy it, it's a waste of time. The only way you can deal damage to Electro now is to throw a car at him and he'll be vulnerable to attack for a few seconds. The only minor problem with this is that he'll dodge the cars a lot of the time, so you've got to keep throwing them at him until he's eventually hit. Oh, and if you're nearly dead and need to feed off of some civilians, you'll have to get your timing right, because there's a high chance Electro will shoot you with bolts of lightning and the feeding will instantly stop. Aside from those little minor problems, this boss battle is pretty good and definitely one of the best ones in the game. Oh, and it resembles the fight scene with Electro from that one movie. After Electro is defeated, Venom stands over Spider-Man and is about to go in for the kill, but is interrupted when S.H.I.E.L.D. arrives along with Nick Fury. Venom takes down a few agents, roars, and then leaves, leaving this agent over here incredibly disappointed. Back to the Spider-Man story, we see a mercenary called the Beetle sneak onto a S.H.I.E.L.D. boat that's 200 miles off of the coast of the US. He takes out all of the agents on board and secures his target. Now, because I've read all of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, I already know who this guy in the cell is, but I won't reveal his identity until we get to his mission for anyone who doesn't know who he is. We cut to the Beetle flying through Queens and past Spider-Man, catching his attention. Spidey attempts to just talk to him, but Beetle isn't really in the mood for any type of talking, and so a chase begins. At points, he'll create these barriers in between buildings that'll cause you to slow down if you swing into them, so you have to jump over or under them depending on where the open gap for you to go through is. He'll occasionally throw grenades at you, but you can just do a double jump whilst you're swinging when he does that and you're fine. He flies into this lab in this building to secure his next target. You struggling to find the vial you're looking for? I'll help you out. I think it's the one that's properly textured and fizzing. You're welcome. So this next target of his is a sample of the Sandman. Why? I'll explain in a bit. Spider-Man gets to the lab about 10 seconds too late and the chase goes on, leading to a construction site for the boss battle. He'll fly around the place and throw a few grenades at you. Once he stops and hovers in place to shoot you, you can jump towards him and start a combo. In fact, near the end of the fight, you can just repeatedly punch and kick him for about 10 seconds, which doesn't sound long, but in this case, it definitely is. The only other thing that he does in this fight is create this, interesting type of shield to try and knock you away. Before you can deal the last few finishing blows, Beetle escapes. Spidey finds out that he flew to the Latverian embassy. So, this storyline kinda came out of nowhere. I mean, it's definitely intriguing, but it did just show up all of a sudden. I'm gonna answer all of the questions this mission created when we get to the last mission that's about this storyline. Aside from the lingering questions, this mission was pretty good. The chase was fun and challenging, but not overdone. It had a separate but equally interesting story, even if it was distracting at first. It ended with a decent boss battle, and the music was great. That's something I have to mention. The soundtrack in this game is just... it's so good. Don't get me wrong, the soundtrack for the first movie game was also pretty good, but to me, I think this game has the slightly better soundtrack and is the best one so far into this review series. And like in the review for the first movie game, here's my favourite parts of the soundtrack, so have a little listen to it. see Eddie in his cell being questioned by Adrian Toomes. He says that when Spider-Man was in Times Square, he felt that the suit was actually under control. He then remembers the only other time that happened was when he was near Peter and figures out that he's Spider-Man. Trask orders Toomes to get Eddie to tell them everything, and we cut to Eddie and Silver Sable in a helicarrier, and I'll just let you watch.
This mine, and you can't have him.
They both fall out of the helicarrier and it's time for the first boss battle with her. She'll jump all over the place and at points shoot you if you're too far away. Throw a car at her and it'll cause a decent amount of damage. When she's closer to you, use your tentacles and claw attacks, but don't attempt a grab attack. You'll just get stuck in her combo animations and lose a bunch of health. This is an alright fight. It's better than the second fight with her, but I'll get to that later. This is how the rest of the mission goes. You kill a couple of mercenaries and destroy their vehicles until the green objective marker on the map pops up. Then, no matter what, you have to get to that location on the map. A cutscene plays showing Venom taking out some of the mercenaries. Repeat that and the mission's over. They do change it up a bit by bringing in helicopters, which definitely makes the mission challenging and keeps you on your toes. But honestly, this mission can be either really frustrating to get through or a ton of fun. I recently replayed the game for this review and was not looking forward to this mission, but for the first time ever, playing this part of the game was actually fun and really exciting. That's probably because you're playing as Venom, just absolutely destroying all of the enemies the game throws at you. It's basically the mission with the mercenaries from earlier, except more fun and memorable. But be warned, this is one of the more difficult missions in the game, so don't be surprised if you end up being stuck on it for a while. The mission ends with Venom taking down Sable's helicarrier and escaping. We then cut back to Spidey's story. Peter and Mary Jane are trying to figure out who the Beetle is and find out that he's part of a bio-tactical legion that have been secretly developed by the Latvarians. They've had a lot of spare time, don't ask. Then Fury interrupts Peter's call and tells him to back off the Latvarian case. The chances of Peter listening are about as likely as this game getting a sequel. Peter switches into his suit and investigates the Latvarian embassy. As soon as he gets inside, he's then blown out of the place by this abomination knockoff, and now you have to chase him.